live, and good morning to all. We are live. There we go. And welcome to everybody to today's Behind the Markets. We are. I'm your host Munyumba Mutwade with my co-pilot Vernon. How are you doing, my brother, on this lovely Monday, the 19th of June, 2023?
Never better, Mnyumba. Never better. My favorite season of the year. So why not happy? We are live. We made it this far, and I don't know why you're smiling, but life is good.
I
How are
don't
you
know why
doing?
this is your favorite season. What Vernon? Why is cold season your favorite season? This is a serious question, guys. These are the dangerous chaps in this world. Why is cold season your favorite season? Anywho, we'll just leave it be. But welcome people to Behind the Markets this week. We have a different spin, Vernon, on the conversation of Mindset Monday. I'll be taking you through a book, which I'm actually going through. I want to take you into my reading process. There's a book I'm going through called The Power to Change by Pastor Craig Rochelle, where he actually addresses the ability for a person to
Mhm.
change their outcomes based on a specific set of principles and how to do it. I advise anybody pick up that book. It's actually quite important because most of the problems you are facing in your life, Vernon, are a result of the changes you are struggling to make. So today we'll be talking mainly about change. And today's Mindset Monday, people, the usual, we usually kind of put away the books, we put away the numbers, the statistics, the figures. Those things just kind of walk away for today. The next day they come running back in. Don't worry, we feed you with that meat straight of the numbers of how the markets are doing and everything is doing. But today is less about the news and more about trying to shape people for the way they will think and the direction they want to pull their mind into going to today. So I want to introduce just the first concept of where we're starting from. Why am I talking about change? So today I want to talk about a few things, Vernon. I want to talk about the millionaire count in Zambia and the millionaire profile. That's actually quite important. So I'm going to start with what I call figure it out. This is a table that came out from Henley Partners last year when they did the 2022 Africa Wealth Report. And these are nations that were profiled in terms of how many millionaires they are and how much wealth they have in their countries. By the way, Vernon, just take a look at where Zambia is sitting on this on this list, and then you'll see why I'm deeply concerned about the wealth creation levels in this nation. We currently have wealth of 14 billion out of this list of African nations. We're currently sitting with a wealth of $14 billion worth of private wealth held by individuals. Remember that things like our bond market is currently sitting at somewhere around when you divide it by 12, it's somewhere around 10 to 15 billion. That's the way it fluctuates, mainly due to FX rates. In fact, these days, it's actually getting as low as 10 billion. Yeah. So it's actually fluctuating around there. Our stock market is much smaller than that. It's about $2 to $3 billion as well. Especially when you remove Shoprite out of the equation, and now you're stuck with the companies that actually operate in Zambia, that are owned and operated in Zambia. And then you're looking at quite a little bit of wealth. But I think the number that actually gets me in most Zambia is the number of millionaires. I think we've silenced Vernon here. I don't know if we've kind of lost him already, but it's the number of millionaires in Zambia. I think that's the most important number there. As you can see, South Africa has 39,000 millionaires, and though yes, South Africa has a bigger population, they're only about 4 times bigger than us in terms of their population, 3 to 4 times bigger than, in fact, not even 4 times anymore. But yet they're clocking about 30 to 40 times more. Actually, no, let's put the number correctly: 50 times more millionaires than we have. Egypt has 16,000 millionaires. Nigeria 10,000. So the number of high net worth individuals with $1 million of wealth is quite high in some of these other countries. Take a look at countries like Mauritius, who have got 3,000 millionaires for every million people, 3,700 millionaires for every million people in their population. South Africa is 684. The African average is 97 millionaires per million people. Now, the global average, if you look very carefully, according to the Credit Suisse report, is actually meant to be 7,000 millionaires. So in a good situation, you're supposed to have about 7%, at least 0.7% of your population should be millionaires, not Zambia's situation where it's 1% of 1%. who are the millionaire population, and that's actually quite shocking in terms of how we've struggled with the wealth creation conversation. And perhaps maybe we need to start looking at it in terms of what are the intrinsic and human factors that are leading to these outcomes. And today, that's why I wanted to address Mindset Monday. In maybe the question we should be asking is, what do we think of ourselves as a group of people that is actually coming to this outcome? So I'm going to throw that question to the audience before we go on our break, especially all of you who are on social media. And if you're listening to us anywhere, send a message and answer this question. What is it that the Zambians think of themselves that is leading to the outcome where our wealth creation levels are significantly lower than anyone else? What could it be about our mindset and about our belief in ourselves that even amongst our peers in Africa, we are scoring so poorly in terms of wealth creation per capita? And I'll be returning on the other side to really revisit this conversation. But this is your Mindset Monday conversation where we're going to talk about the power to actually change this, the power to change. See you all on the other side.
hopeful that we can now have Mutwala join us at this point. Oh, we lost you there for a bit.
We are back. No, no, no. We lost you, unfortunately. So now we are back, and we're back, Vernon. And the question I'm going to point to you is the one I've pointed to the audience regarding our wealth outcomes. Zambia scores relatively low in millionaire count. We have 41 millionaires per every million people in this country. 41, Vernon. 41. That's bad. Now, the question we need to ask ourselves is, especially when we look at the populations, is that what is it about? And I'm asking this question because it's leading up to the Mindset Monday conversation. What is it, Vernon, in your eyes, about the way we see ourselves or the mindset we carry that's leading to such wealth outcomes where even amongst our peers we're scoring so low?
Yeah, like it all boils down, it's all centered on, mindset at the end of the day. You may want to do whatever you can do. Like we have been talking about, I think last week, with a person, of course, who you give money, so long as they have got the poor people mentality or poor person mentality, even though the way they will handle the money, of course, will be just but how a poor person would. Equally, anyone who has the mindset to multiply money, or a millionaire's mindset primarily, they will handle the smallest amount possible in that very regard. It's as simple as that. As much as you want to run away from the concept of building your mentality and educating yourself, that's just but the way to go. If you shun away from education, consequences are going to be very dire for you. You can never overemphasize, you can never get too educated, and this is why we always reiterate the you know the emphasis on education and the importance of education. So ultimately, when it comes to really issues centered on education, I was actually listening to Mazchia Yusuf, an energy, I mean, an tech expert and tech advisor. She said something very interesting. She was really talking about the whole aspect of making robots and AIs more of a colleague and instead of something that would threaten your jobs. And something I picked up about whatever conversation, of course, was trying to bring into perspective was the mentality. We There are companies, of course, who are actually are buying technology items and whatnot and all of that, but we people seemingly are afraid, or maybe we're not trying to get confident with these machines and robots, which are supposed to make our work easier in the long run. I understand, of course, it is kind of a threat when it comes to your job, but if you shun away from it, it makes you it even builds that gap between you, because in future we'll have a lot of technology that you have no choice, but your job requires you to work with technology. And if you shun away from it, that means you're even putting yourself in a risk, because in future you fail to work because everything will be centered on technology. So she was really trying to bring out the whole point of your mentality towards these technology softwares, applications. Make them work for you, make them your work easier, and build from them. But unlike a situation where you're trying to run away from them. So mentality is something that you want to deliberately invest into, and like putting yourself and say, well, this is me, I'm comfortable, I've been doing this thing for the longest time possible, I'm experienced in this particular field. When it comes to money matters, I was even sharing before we even lost each other there for a bit, I was saying mindset. It is all centered on the mindset, on what you invest yourself into. In personal finance is something that I will tell you I'm very keen about, and ensuring that people can actually look into that, building on the mentality of everything you do. Looking at those numbers you shared, Mutwale, that is not something it's not something commendable that we can look at, looking at how many millionaires we have today. And recently I remember we also tackled a graph of just how the education spectrum looks like from America, almost on the bottom, Europe, of adults educated in Africa and particularly in Zambia. That also is a source of concern. You may want to take note as well, and this is not just some one of those making you feel like you're uneducated and you should get educated. No, this is something that has to be looked at seriously. This boils down to how you react to almost every situation around you, how you parent, how you make money, how you react at work, how you react with family members. It all trickles down to all of these aspects centered around you. And if you decide to shun away from education, like I said, you can never overemphasize education at any particular level. You want to get yourself an education. I remember Siame, Suilanja Siame, equally was actually, getting, I think, a degree, if not a PhD, at Unilas recently. There's a gentleman who, I'm not sure if you've watched Blackish, the guy who played the dad, was equally graduating as well at his old age. I don't know if he should be like 50 now, but he was still getting, his papers. So education at whatever level is something that you want to do. So building on that, this is something that actually in every country actually they're also building on. In Mexico, let me say Europe, when it comes to business and entrepreneurship, most of them when they fail, according to research, they go back to therapy, according to what they actually have studied. They feel when they go to the therapy, they're able to restructure their mindset. If you go to America, if they fail in business, they prefer they go back and learn more about business and then restructure their mindset and get back into it again together. So it all still boils down to what you feed yourself about whatever it is that you're tackling. So building ourselves to becoming more wealthy not only is going to benefit ourselves but equally the country at large. Imagine in countries where you have at least a good third of the population are billionaires. Imagine what kind of an economy Zambia would be. I think I'll
The
end my case
American
there.
economy is about one. America accounts for about 20% or 40% actually of the world's millionaires. That's why it's concentrated such powerful wealth. It actually makes up about almost 40%, if not about 39% of the world's millionaires. That is pretty much where, like I said, the power comes from. The power to see your nation be self-sufficient. I asked this question many times. Why do other countries have much more debt than us? And I'm talking about the developed countries. I'm talking about Japan. I'm talking about America. I'm talking about the UK. These developed countries we are borrowing money from have got debt to GDP ratios far north of 100%. They've got really high debt to GDP ratios. Why are their debt to GDP ratios so high, yet they are not debt distressed nations? Why? Because they source debt from within. That is the reality. They're borrowing from themselves. It's like me, Vernon, borrowing to a company that I am. The company that I own is lending money from me as an individual. That's not debtedness. That's just it's okay. It's me and the company. Okay. If anything goes wrong, I'm still the shareholder. As in, it's not an issue. So the reality of
Yeah.
most of these developed nations is that it's internalized lending. In fact, you find this even in sort of in a way you find it in the Indian Zambian or Indian African communities where when they've settled here, they do a lot of communitarian lending amongst each other. In fact, you find it also with the Chinese American community. When they were being rejected from going to banks to get loans, they did communitarian lending, and that's circulation of money between them. Okay, because that's the study I think that was done by the Kellogg Institute, where they found that they actually did a study amongst the different ethnic groups and found that money in the Asian community circulates. A dollar, when entered the Asian community, circulates for 30 days. A dollar, when entered into the Jewish community, circulates for about 20 days. A dollar, when entered into the white community, circulates amongst white people's hands for about 17 days. A dollar entered into the black community circulates for 6 hours. Gone straight out. So there's no retention of finance in their systems. So that's where the problems are coming from. So there's now Booker T. Washington stressed this issue that there is a mentality, and a mentality is shaped by two things: education and character. He really worked on the fact that in as much as we can stress education, we must also work on character. This is what parenting, this is what churches, this is what social design does. So the education system enlightens us to the things we need to know for our work and our productivity, while the parenting and the social system, because people like saying we need to bring character into school. People, what are parents for? There's also a thing called parents here. Okay, and I know, yes, there's we had Father's Day yesterday, and we are having a rise of absenteeism of fathers. That's why one newspaper even joked and said Happy Athletics Day for those men who have run away from children. Because unfortunately, there's a blend of this situation where there are fathers who are raising their children, and there are those who are running away from them. And those who are running away are creating character issues in society. So there's this blend of things that we really have to start working on as a society that's leading us to this. We've gotten one answer here before I move on to the next thing. This is from Mukuba. Mukuba who has said, "Great conversation. I feel what is hindering us as a nation is our mindset when it comes to creating wealth. For a long time, the wealthy have been demonized, literally demonized, and mostly associated with selling years. Uh, uh, we also have this notion that wealth must be created quickly, hence the rise in scamming. Such programs create a platform to break the vicious cycle and set the people on an awesome path." Thank you very much, sir, and hopefully we can do that. So, as many of you, please feel free to answer the question: what is it in our mindset or perception of ourselves that's leading us to have such poor wealth outcomes? Now, let me actually try and, no pun intended, poor wealth outcomes. Now, let's get into something even in our charts and our graphics. So, our graphics here, here's something I wanted to give people in terms of the millionaire mindset. Now, these are the three studies, and I show this a lot because I want you to understand what did Dave Ramsey say in last week's when we talked about it. We said, if you do rich people things with money, you will be rich people. If you do poverty things with money, you'll be poor people. So let's answer the question: what does rich people do with money? Now, the Ramsey Group studied 10,000 millionaires. Now, obviously, American millionaires, but remember, like I said, America makes up 40% of the world's millionaires. So why not study them? Why study the poverty we have around when they've actually built an engine of millionaires? Okay, why not study what they've done? And let's look at what it means to be a millionaire in their system, because we always say, no, they have access to credit. Well, let's take a look. 94% of the millionaires in America live within their means. In other words, their income is always greater than their spending. So if 94% of millionaires live within their income, well, that already tells you that if you're living out of your income, you're doing poor people things with money. That's already telling you this. 75% of the millionaire class have never had a credit card. Now, this is debatable because some others have found that 97% of millionaires have them, but they pay them off by the end of the month. So, one of the key statistics here is they don't have overrunning credit. Okay, now maybe this could be biased to Dave Ramsey because he tells people cut your credit card and move on with life, but they don't have overrunning credit. In other words, whenever they borrow, whenever they use their credit card or they get credit, by the end of the month that credit is gone. Okay, it doesn't roll over into multiple months. 80% of them invest in retirement. Okay, so all of you say, oh, retirement. Well, 80% of their millionaire class are investing in retirement. Even Fidelity has found the same thing. 70% of them make consistent and regular investments in mutual funds and unit trusts. Okay, they own single assets, but they also own a lot of mutual funds and unit trusts. This is what they've also built. It is 20. It takes them 28 years on average to build $1 million of wealth and 49. So if you think that you're going to become a millionaire overnight all the time, well, guess what? You are doing poor people things with money. Okay, so if you're not making regular investments, you're doing poor people things with money. If you're not taking a period of 20 odd years, or if you're not giving yourself that kind of a spectrum, guess what? You're doing poor people things with money. Okay, 79% of them started with zero inheritance. In other words, no handouts. They were below middle class. So if you're saying, no, I had a negative start because of this, guess what? You're doing poor people things with money again. So you see how this is now giving you the descriptions here. 85% of them are not chief executives of companies. They're managers, maybe they're this, but they're not chief executives of companies. 69% of them are not top 10% earners. So in other words, they're in the normal percentiles of earning. And 62% of them went to public colleges. So they are college graduates, but they went to regular universities. They didn't go to those Ivy League, Harvard, and so forth. They went to regular public universities, Georgia State or whatever state or this state. So guess what? These are just regular people with regular jobs who just made good decisions and are disciplined with money. So it is about being disciplined. In fact, the most important thing about achieving the outcome of wealth is simply discipline. And I'm going to get to that, especially as we're going to go through multiple weeks of this power to change thing. And so it's going to be a very important thing. Now, even let's look at Fidelity's wealth. Fidelity, who's the biggest wealth advisor in the world, who has about what 700,000 clients with $1 million in their IRA accounts and also their 401k accounts, with $1 million worth of wealth and an average wealth of $1.7 million. Let's take a look at what they're talking about in terms of their 2014 to 2017 profiles of them. The millionaires are long-term focused. They take 20 to 40-year decisions. They're very patient in that they save and invest for 30 years. They invest in professional development. In other words, they get certificates and credentials. So if you're not investing in your professional development, guess what? You're doing poor people things with money. They are revenue aggressive. In other words, they often earn on performance. They often try and get themselves to earn performance, commission, whatever they can, but they're very aggressive about growing their revenue. So if you're always complaining about inflation and never working on trying to enhance your revenue, you are doing poor people things with money. So if you're sitting there on social media, inflation, cost of things, but you're not reading and improving your skills and looking for new opportunities and expanding your capabilities so that you can earn more, if you're not being a diligent earner, always pushing yourself to your full capacity, no matter what, you are doing poor people things with money, no matter how justified your excuses about inflation. They are self-starters, zero inheritance. So if you're waiting for a good kickstart, you're waiting for, no, something has to be correct. I needed to get money. You're doing poor people things with money. They're aggressive investors. So if you're just sitting on piles of cash praying that inflation doesn't eat your money, you are doing poor people things with money. And when they get to a wealth position, they now start to seek advice and they diversify. So they look for somebody to advise them on how to do this properly. So if you're trying to always go it alone, no, me, I can cut people out. I don't need this. You're doing poor people things with money. Okay. So remember the rule. If you do rich people things with money, so this is what they're trying to tell you. These are rich people things with money. And the things you're doing, if you're doing the opposite, are poor people things with money. So this is the checklist you want to go through in terms of, am I doing, and I want everybody to really go through this. Look at the Ramsey score, look at the Fidelity score, and look at the final one. Ask yourself this question. What is your score on these? Just start doing a tick sheet. What is your score in these areas? And then it will tell you what character you need to start working on. Now, if you're looking at the Millionaire Next Door, Dr. Sarah Stanley Fallow found that 94% of millionaires are married. In fact, the same statistic is found in the Fidelity data as well, where they found the majority of them are also married. And they found obviously 66% of them are male, 80% of them are married, 50% are graduates from public colleges. If you look at 62% from the Ramsey study, the numbers are not that different. 86% are first generation, 79% from the Ramsey study, numbers are pretty similar. Okay, 80% of them are still actively working. So if you're talking about, no, I want to be wealthy so I can go and sit on a beach somewhere and just look at the sunset with a glass of wine in my hand until I turn chakuti, that is poor mentality. Most of the people who are wealthy are very diligent workers. Now, whatever role they're in, they're just very diligent. That's the way they've done it. 70% of them live strictly on a budget. 94% of them live within their means. I think there we go. Mostly drive regular cars like Hondas, Toyotas, regular cars, people. So if you've just gotten into some money, hey, and we're seeing Bima Bentley, or like, what was his name? Dwayne Wade, who had 18 cars. He had just started playing in the NBA and got 18 cars. And his financial advisor looked and said, "You have 18 bottoms, my friend. Why are you in 18 cars? What are you doing?" It's just, you're ransacking your wealth. So already these are the issues. 70% of them are confident investors with professional managers, and 77% of them even work in fields that they studied in college. So they study and the field they work in are very similar. So these are the things. So I would advise everybody. In fact, comment below if you have there, and even send us a text. What do you think of your score? You don't have to give us the exact score where you are, but what is your score in these areas? Okay. And ask yourself, are you doing rich people things with money, or are you doing poor people things with money? Just ask yourself personally before you start saying, as a nation, as people, start with you. What are you doing with money? Okay. How are you scoring in these areas, and what's it saying about you? Now I want to just give you, even from Fidelity here, this is the budgetary allocation of a millionaire. Okay, this is the Fidelity Millionaire Client Book. As they've said, 82% of them are self-made, and 18% of them inherited their wealth. So only 18%, again, we're seeing that number 72, 86, 82. So it's very close that we're seeing somewhere between 79 and 86% of these people do not inherit. They build this wealth from scratch. Meaning also that when they hand it over to their children, they squander it. That's also what it means. So there's also an issue with
Mhm.
them raising their children correctly. But the other part I would say here is take a look at their debt profile. The household debt of the average millionaire. 57% of them have zero debt. Only 24% of them have a mortgage. Only 16% of them have a credit card. If you look at the Ramsey study, what did they say? 75% of them have never had a credit card. Look here. Only 16% of Fidelity millionaires have credit card debt. Auto loans, only 13% of them. So if you've got car loans, credit card debt, and mortgages piling up to your neck, do you honestly think you're doing rich people things if you're already seeing this statistic that's showing you what they're doing? Okay. So if you're not doing the same things they're doing, how on earth are you expecting the same outcomes? Where does that register in our minds? And this is a country, by the way, where they have much better access to credit. They have cheaper credit. Okay, they have cheaper credit and much better access to credit. But look at how very few of them would rather eat dirt than touch the credit that you're dancing and screaming for. Okay, what is it telling you? Now, if you look at even their budgets, what does it show you? 31% of them, they save 31% of their net income. 11% goes into cash savings, 13% goes into retirement savings, 13% goes into brokerage accounts, and 7% into retirement accounts. So about 20% goes into wealth accounts. Okay, 20% of their savings goes into wealth accounts. 26% of their money is going towards fixed expenses such as mortgages, rent, car payments, real estate. So anything to do with taxes, rent, or mortgages or interest payments, anything that is fixed that has to be paid on a specific date, only 26% of their income. So if you are earning 20,000, 10,000, and about 5 to 10,000 of your money is already going to payments, my friend, you are not doing rich people things with money, because already it tells you here. Okay, if rent, all these things are consuming so much, already it's telling you you're living way outside. And 43% of the money that they spend is what they call discretionary spending: food, entertainment, gas, clothing, credit card payments, things they have control over, things they can make decisions over as to how much they can be paying. So I think this already tells you the financial habits that they've already assumed as people. And the question you need to ask is, what are you in line with this? When you take your budget home and you go through, first of all, do you have a budget? That's the question. That's the first question. Firstly, do you even have a budget? Secondly, when you do look at your budget and you look at your expenditures, how much are you lining up with the way they're spending? How much are you lining up with the way they're doing things in terms of debt? How much are you lining up with the fact that you're waiting? You're saying, no, but that one got money when they were young, and this. How are you lining up with this information? And finally, Vernon, if you look at even just their behavior, the surveys that they did before we get into the power to change conversation, is they did a survey and they said, if you look here, 52% of them say, I often put off buying a big ticket item until I have enough cash to purchase it. So when you are going into Ngongole for big things, what does it already say about you? Already here, you're already seeing the majority of them would say, I'd rather wait until I have. These are people with a million, average $1.75 million of wealth. Okay, these are people with a million, with an average income of $200,000 a year. This is them saying, I would rather wait until I have the cash. Now, you, with a fraction of that money, you only live once, YOLO, already. Number two, uh, 78% of them disagree that they are spenders more than savers. Already they call themselves savers. So they look at what they call themselves. Okay, they don't call themselves spenders, and they're going to talk about this topic as well. They prefer saving over investing. In other words, so they'd rather invest when they have saved up money, they don't just stockpile it in cash. They'd rather invest it in something. 73% of them refuse the idea that they're concerned about not having enough to live comfortably when they get older. They're very comfortable. They know because they've planned for it. They already put together a system to plan for it. And 46% of them say reducing their debt is more important than increasing their savings. The rest of them, the majority of them really would rather reduce their debt. So you can already see that they are or in fact, sorry, reducing their debt, they'd still rather save more. So you can see that these are a group of people who are aggressive about building wealth. They're very aggressive about it. And the problem, I think, Vernon, comes down to if you look at the book Capitalist N Word, and you go through, remember last time we talked about what he said? He said the black perspective of wealth is based on what brands you can afford and how people can see. So for us, wealth is not what grows, but what we can show. That is where the problem comes in. So when Africans talk about building wealth, we talk about buying cars, buying fancy this, living like this, do all this. That's what we categorize as building wealth. That is a poverty mindset. Okay, that in there is the seed of poverty planted in us that I think is the envy of our colonial masters. When we looked at the colonizers controlling Africa and the lifestyles they were living, we were so envious of that, that to us saying, once we get there, that's what we're going to do. And because of that, we are blinded to the fact that there were assets backing those lifestyles. So now we're trying to live asset-based lifestyles with salaries. That's where the problem comes. We're trying to live wealth lifestyles with salaries. And when those salaries get taken, what happens to the average Zambian when their job gets finished or they get fired from it? Their lifestyle just crumbles beneath them. Okay? Whether when they get kicked out of politics, you've seen these former politicians who now walk around in dusty clothes, now decrepit, suffering from illnesses they could have never suffered from before. Why? Because it was all based on an income and it was never based on an asset base. That was where the problem came from. That the lifestyle was not based on what they owned, it was based on what they earned at that point. And when the earning was cut, the lifestyle died with it. So this is just something that I just wanted us to think about before we get into the main part of the conversation. And the question, Vernon, I'll throw at you before we get in there, I know we've got about 15 minutes remaining, is do you think, judging by all of that, do you think as a nation, as people, we are practicing rich people things with money if that's the determining factor of rich people things with money?
Absolutely not. I mean, looking at what we have on the table so far, that's a clear indication that we are
Sorry, Vernon, your
muted
microphone.
my mic there. Clearly, we're yeah. Oh, sorry, I actually muted my mic. Moving forward, we are seeing notably that where we are stepping at. I think now I have noticed with entrepreneurs the hunger to build some sort of wealth and a bit of some saving. I think that I've noticed with entrepreneurs, but ultimately the rest of us, I think I don't know. I would be lying if I would say most of us are on that trajectory of building wealth. We are more into um, what am I mean, the best brands in the market, the latest stuff, what am I wearing? Who's gonna see me wearing what kind of nice car is there? And I think this sense of competition is not really nice. Trying to compete and look like you're the one who's doing way better. I think that is just but wrong. I've actually was looking at something by Mems and Destin, who actually was talking about how we grow up as people. You shared us an interesting story of a young person who was growing up at about 7 years of age, and every time he was trying to tell his parents and his peers about what he's trying to become, he was always being told, "No, you can't be. Just be this." As you're growing up as well, I remember being told, "I think you should be this as you're growing up." Also, that is also contributing to what you are becoming at the end of the day. We're being told, like one of the our audience saying that as you're growing up, we're being told you can only make money if you do A, B, C, D, and you shouldn't have too much money because you're perceived as one who's not doing something right, spiritually, maybe religiously and whatnot. So you see, all of this is growing up, And by the time you realize all of these sentiments coming through, all of this information that is coming through is building and customizing you to think in a particular way. And that's why today we are in this particular state of thinking. When I have money, I just but need to spend it. Clearly you cannot live a lavishing life on a salary that is limited. And you have nothing else on your table apart from a salary. And every time you need to you know I've always thought, and my thoughts have always been in between. Why would you go to work for 30 days or so, and then you have this amount of money, and before you elapse, that money essentially is supposed to, suffice for at least 30 days up until your next pay. But in most cases, it's never the case where you push yourself all the way up until 30 days. Then what really are you supposed to do? And over time I've been thinking about this, and after realizing and taking a bit more time into just understanding money matters, it's just about the attitude, the mindset, how you treat money, how you handle money at the end of the day. This money can even last you longer. I was sharing with one of my colleagues, and I was telling them, I have been saving, and I can tell you now, I have more than half my monthly pay in my account, and I can even show you right now. And everybody was surprised, because it was that deliberate step that you start taking. Because, if you are, like you mentioned earlier, if you realize that you can't have, your monthly pay push you at least for more than 30 days, without a doubt, just know that you are overspending and you're living out of your means. Then I realized, if I'm overdoing things, then I have to drastically reduce everything that I'm usually spending on that seem to be necessities. I have to trickle them down. And building on that, I saved. And the time that, half the money I had was gone, spent on bills and whatnot and whatnot, I realized I was almost hitting the 25th, and I had that 1,000 saved up and more in my account because of, the attitude of just wanting to save money and building towards something. And I realized, what, all of this, I'm broke before month end. You get paid, I'm broke before month end. It's about how you behave with money, how you treat money, and your mindset primarily.
So yes, I'll look at this also politically, and we've gotten a statement here from Somopiri who has said we are too dependent on a messiah, we are too comfortable blaming the government and politics, and we have demonized wealth. It's time to change our mindset. And Rodwell has said this is hard hitting, but this income to lifestyle thing, yeah, that's the reality. From the bank account straight to the plate, that lifestyle, that's where that's where the issues are coming. Now obviously the show your wealth mentality, well, think about it. I mean, when in the last political slogan, I think, was it in 2017, 2016, what was the president then running with? Sontapo. Wow, he was saying, show your work, show your work. So even us, that's what we say with our money. Show you say you are paid well. Show us. We must see the cars. We must see. And we're easily we have a very we're very easily insecure as a people. Kanye West, ironically, in one of those hazy moments, said, as a people, we're very proud, but very emotional. Okay. And he says, unfortunately, it's very easy to tug at our emotions and our pride. And therefore, I'll show you I work. I show you my job. Check my car. It say, look at this phone. It say, look at the people I'm surrounded with. Look at where I go and drink. Now, that's the mentality. And as a result, we're looking at, as we're seeing all these things, your bank account and your asset balance are going like this until you're negative into your balance sheet,
Keeps
and you're
depleting.
looking, you look rich, but you're in a negative state on your balance sheet. This is a reality, by the way, that we all run away from. So I think that's what we need to really deal with. So I'm going to talk today about 6 principles of identity driven change. And this is from a book which I recommend to every of you, The Power to Change, by Craig Rochelle, who is the founder and pastor of Life Church, and also that U Vision Bible. And he wrote this book, and he's talking about it's actually 6 major principles, and 2 of them are merged together. And there are things I want us to really touch on very quickly in these last 7 minutes. Please take note of this, because these are life transforming things. But I would advise you read the book. It's a daily devotional that helps you understand the importance of change and how, if you want to change your outcomes, you've got to change your identity. So the power to change. So the first thing he touches on is the power versus desire. Many of us at the beginning of the year will make New Year's resolutions expressing our desire to change, but we never implement the power to change. So let's look at the definitions of the word power and desire. Desire is longing, hoping, expressing, and wishing. Okay, I wish. But have you noticed none of those are action things? It's just in your mind. You're hoping, you're longing, you're wishing. But the word power, when you go to Merriam Webster, means the ability and capacity to affect or influence a desired outcome. Okay? So desire is me pushing something, power is me getting something to happen. That's a difference. So if you're talking about, you need to switch from having the desire to change to having the power to change. So if you're trying to change your financial outcomes, you're going to have to say, I can want to build wealth. I can desire to get my budget together. But are you doing things that are giving you the power to actualize that? That's a difference now. Okay. Writing a budget, that is power. Living by a budget, that is power. Okay. Dreaming about the things you would do with money, that is desire. That is a difference. Okay.
Yeah.
So you need to switch from the dream to what are the habits that are actually done. And power is often found in the disciplined execution of habits. That's the difference. What are the habits? So that's why I said, look at what the millionaires are doing with their money. They're living within their means. They're never overrunning credit. They're not taking out car loans. You notice the things they're doing, okay? So what are the habits they're implementing that are leading them to that millionaire wealth status? Well, look at what they're doing. Okay, that's what you need to start looking at. So power versus desire. So ask yourself the question, do you have the power to change or do you have the desire to change your financial outcomes? That's a big question. And that's a different framing of your mind. Okay? Because a powerful person is disciplined and executes habits. Desire looks in the sky, dreams, wishes, envies, those things. So when you're talking about the change that you're trying to implement, what are we seeing here? Power or desire? Then the next thing that we want to actually look at from this book is, this is the next chapter. It says, you do what you do because of what you think of you. So say, Vernon, your paycheck hits your account, and you've told yourself, remember what I said, the millionaires do not call themselves spenders. Let's go back to this fidelity thing here. It said millionaires 78% of them disagree that they're spenders and agree that they are savers. You notice that? Look at what they're calling themselves. So let's get to this statement that says, you do what you do because of what you think of you. Now look at that very carefully. Who am I? Are you a spender or a saver? Your bank account hits, the money hits your bank account. What are you? A spender or a saver? If you call yourself a spender, then that money is going to get spent, because you're going to ask three questions in any given situation. You're going to ask three questions of yourself. Who am I? What situation is this? And what does a person like me do in this situation? Those are the three questions. Now, if you want to change, the trick is to slow these questions down. Don't let it run in autopilot in the back of your mind, because your instincts are what have gotten you to these bad situations anyway. So ask the question, who am I? So if you say I'm a saver, if you're trying to say, okay, today, this year, I'm a saver. So if you say I'm a saver, then you have to ask yourself the question, what do savers do when their bank account gets hit with their salary? Do they spend it or do they save it? You see the difference now. Okay?
Yeah.
So you have to change that answer to the question, who am I? Because if you want to change what you do, the situation is going to be the same. That's why two people can go through the exact same situations but have different outcomes, because they have a different answer to the question, who am I? That is the difference. It's the same situation, but they answer the question, who am I, differently. Am I an investor? Am I an entrepreneur? Well, if you are, what do entrepreneurs do in this situation? What do investors do in this situation? What do this? So you have to now start to understand. The second thing is, the second thing he points out is, you must understand the true you. Now, I wanted to just go into this, is that he actually states in the book that you don't change because of behavior modification, trying to force yourself to do different things. You do it because of personal and spiritual transformation. So you have to transform who you are to do different things, not to just force yourself, because you as a person have to be consistent. What's his name? Robert Cialdini, in the book Persuasion, Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion, writes about consistency. And he recognizes that human beings have this incessant need to be consistent with their past or their declared identity. So you've got this need to be consistent. So you have to then look at yourself very carefully. So the next thing he says is know the true you. Okay. If you know the true you, you have to know this: you are not your past mistakes, and you are not what people have said about you. Rather, you are what your true potential is. So, are you capable of saving and investing money and building wealth? Yes, you are. You're very capable of it. You're very capable of becoming wealthy. So, you should not title yourself by what mistakes you've made in the past and what people have called you, but rather title yourself. And Dumisani Ngube actually says this inside his book when people were mocking him because he ran a Kantemba where he was selling Kasepa instead of Kapenta. And he said under his breath, I know my journey, I know where I am. And they were dissing him and everything, but he said it doesn't matter. He knew who he was. That is what has made Dumisani be the radical entrepreneur. And those guys who were mocking him for selling Capenta selling Capesa instead of Capenta, where are they? They are probably still in the same compound where they were mocking him from, saying, I know that guy. That guy was one of us. I always believed in him. That's who they are now. So he knew himself by his capabilities and capacity, not by the narrative that was painted by him as a Capesa selling Kantemba owner. That's what they just pointed to him. But today he has changed. Who he has morphed into that because he already knew who he was. He didn't decide who society told him who he was. Then the next thing he says about change, and I'm going to try and run through this quite quickly, is know the future you. Okay? Always ask yourself, now that I know what I'm capable of being, what do I want to see in the next 5 to 10 years? Okay? So and he also says, always consult future you about current decisions. Don't make your current decisions based on your current feelings. Make your current decisions based on the character of the future you. So, is going out and YOLOing your money on the Friday and finishing your paycheck this weekend, is that consistent with the investor or the wealthy person who you foresee in the future? Is that consistent with them? Ask that person if that's something they want you to do. Ask the future you, is this decision the right decision? Do not consult your feelings, consult the future you. So have a picture of who you want to see in 10 years and ask that person if this is the right decision, because every decision you're making now is basically going to materialize in that person's life. So think about it like Terminator, how that guy always kept on coming back to the past. Why? Because the decisions made in the past affect the outcome of the future. So whatever decision you're making now is affecting what's going to happen in the future. So always consult the future you. And finally, I'll put it into this. There is a 3-level change process in that you must change your identity. Once you have changed your identity, then ask yourself, this new identity, I'm no longer a spender, I'm no longer a broker, I'm no longer this. The question now is, what are the character traits of millionaires? What are the character traits of entrepreneurs? Now I need to work on that. And then you direct yourself into a place. So there's always an identity, which is salvation, as they called it in here. Sanctification is your character, and then being put into service is the direction you go. And finally, Vernon, I will say this, is the names you call yourself will shape your reality. So always watch what you're calling yourself. Do not call yourself according to your circumstance, your mistakes, or what other people have. You've got to call yourself according to what you see your true potential as. Because once you do that, you will seek to do things that are consistent. So often the question is, why is Zambia have such poor outcomes when it comes to wealth? A lot of it has to do with what we see ourselves like. A lot of it has to do with how we believe ourselves to be. A lot of it has to do with what we call ourselves. Okay? The things we say about ourselves, the things we believe about ourselves are truly different. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought by author and Beachbody celebrity super trainer Autumn Calabrese. She says this: if you want something in your life you have never had, you are going to have to do something you have never done. That's the mindset I want to do. Is I'll be going through the next set of chapters from Power to Change next week on Mindset Monday. Vernon, your final thoughts before we get out of here.
Maybe people want to take a different route and try to hunger more to be, financially literate and maybe become more millionaires and actually have more millionaires in the country. I think that is my plan. That is my trajectory to be comfortable and to be wealthy and not live hand to mouth
But just always remember, Vernon, there's a difference between power and desire. You can hunger for
and
something, but
desire.
the power to deal with
Mm.
that, but is the habits that you execute. So to everyone, wish you all a good day. See you
Have a
tomorrow.
good day.